All right, let's take a trip back in time. The year is 752 BC. The northern kingdom of Israel is, well, it's a powder keg just waiting to explode. Their long-reigning, prosperous king, Jeroboam II, has just died, and he's left a massive power vacuum. And right into this chaos steps a man you have probably never, ever heard of, King Shallum. His story is incredibly short, incredibly violent, and, as you're about to see, absolutely critical for understanding how a nation falls apart.
30. That's it. That's the entire length of his reign. Not 30 years, not even 30 months, 30 days. 1 full month. Now, you might look at that and think, okay, that's a historical footnote, right? A blip on the timeline. But it's so much more than that.
And that really brings us to the core question here. How can a reign that's so unbelievably short actually be significant? Well, Shallum's brief, bloody time on the throne isn't just some weird piece of trivia. It's basically a perfect case study in how a nation begins to completely unravel. So to really get a handle on Shallum, we first have to understand the world he stepped into. The dynasty of Jehu had been in charge for nearly a century, bringing a lot of stability. But now, it's about to just shatter. Jeroboam II's rule, it looked great on the surface. Lots of money, lots of power. But the biblical prophets, guys like Amos and Hosea, they were screaming that it was spiritually corrupt to its very core. The foundation was rotten, and the whole house was about to come crashing down.
And boy, did it happen fast. The very first domino falls almost immediately. Jeroboam's son, Zechariah, takes the throne, and he lasts a whopping 6 months. He's murdered in public, and that one act of violence just throws open the doors for the chaos that allows a total outsider like Shallum to even think about grabbing power.
But here's where it gets really interesting. For the guys writing the Bible, this isn't just random political violence. No, they see this whole collapse in a fascinating way. For them, this is where human ambition crashes right into a divine timeline. It's a prophecy made almost 100 years earlier, finally coming to pass. Just look at this timeline for a second. The whole dynasty started way back around 841 BC. That's when Jehu violently overthrew the old, corrupt ruling family, and for doing that, he was given a divine promise. And it held true. He ruled, then his son Jehoahaz, then his grandson Joash, and finally his great-grandson Jeroboam II. I mean, that's remarkable stability for the northern kingdom. But here's the catch. This is the crucial point. The promise, recorded right there in the Book of Kings, was super specific. Jehu's family would sit on the throne for 4 generations. Not 5, not forever, 4. And that 100-year-old prophecy is just hanging over everything that's happening in 752 BC.
And guess who Zechariah was? The king who just got assassinated? He was the son of Jeroboam II. That makes him the 4th generation after Jehu. With his death, the terms of the prophecy were met. The clock had officially run out on the dynasty of Jehu. The biblical writer sums it all up with this simple but incredibly powerful statement. And so it came to pass. It's this deep theological interpretation saying that even in the middle of all this violence, this coup, this political chaos, a bigger divine plan is playing out. The dynasty's end wasn't an accident, it was an appointment.
Okay, so prophecy fulfilled, dynasty over. What happens next? Total, complete collapse of order. And this brings us right to the main event, the chaotic month of 2 coups, centered on the capital city, Samaria, and the meteoric rise and fall of our guy, King Shallum.
Now, Shallum's takeover was not some quiet backroom deal. The text says he conspired against him and smote him before the people. This was a public assassination, an organized rebellion. And Shallum himself, he's a nobody in royal terms, no royal bloodline. He's just some political or military guy who sees a power vacuum and brutally, violently seizes it.
But Shallum barely has time to get the throne warm. Another ambitious man, Menahem, is waiting in the wings. So first, as you see here, he gathers his army in Tirzah, an old capital city. Then he marches straight for Samaria. Menahem's counter-coup is fast, and it is just as brutal as Shallum. He finds Shallum right there in the capital and kills him.
I mean, just let that sink in for a second. This sequence of events shows you just how fast everything fell apart. In a single year, the Northern Kingdom saw its longtime king die, his heir get assassinated, the usurper get assassinated, and now a third guy, another usurper, is on the throne. The kingdom is literally bleeding out.
So while all this internal chaos is exploding, we have to hit pause for a second and zoom out.
because this implosion isn't happening in a bubble. All of Israel's internal weakness is about to collide with a terrifying new external threat. This slide right here really puts it in perspective. While Israel up north is tearing itself to pieces, its neighbor, the southern kingdom of Judah, is actually doing great. They're in the middle of a long, stable reign under King Uzziah, and that stability down south just makes the chaos and vulnerability up north look even worse.
Seriously, the timing of this internal collapse could not possibly be worse. I mean, you could not have picked a more dangerous moment in history to just descend into civil war. All this infighting is basically putting a giant kick-me sign on their back for any outside power looking to expand.
And that power is Assyria. This massive empire to the northeast is waking up. In just a few years, a new, hyper-aggressive king is going to take the throne, and he's going to start a relentless push to the west, and a weak, divided, unstable Israel is sitting right in his way.
So let's bring this all home. We started out asking how a one-month reign could possibly matter, and I think the answer is this. Shallum's legacy isn't about what he built, it's about what he broke.
When the biblical writers sum up his reign, this is it. This is the whole list. His defining act? Conspiracy. How'd he start? Violence. How'd he end? Violence. How long did it last? 1 month. There are no reforms, no building projects, no great victories. His entire legacy is just instability.
And this, right here, is why he's so important historically. Shallum isn't the cause of the collapse, but he is the first major symptom. His 30-day reign is like the first deep, visible crack in the windshield that tells you the whole thing is about to shatter into a million pieces.
And look how fast it all happens from here. The instability that Shallum represents leads directly to Israel becoming a puppet state for Assyria just 14 years later. The cycle of assassinations just keeps going. And only 30 years after Shallum's 1-month reign, the capital city falls. The northern kingdom is wiped off the map. Forever.
So in the end, Shallum, the 1-month king, is so much more than a historical footnote. He's this potent, powerful symbol. He represents that exact moment when a nation's internal rot and division gets so bad that it just can't stand on its own anymore, making it easy prey for all the dangers waiting outside.
And that kind of leaves us with a final lingering thought. The story of Shallum is ancient history, but the pattern is timeless. It forces us to ask ourselves, what are the warning signs? What are those first fractures that appear when any nation, at any time in history, begins to unravel from the inside out?